Welcome to the Hero's Journey podcast. I'm so excited today. This is the sacred space where we can kiss our doubts goodbye and embark with confidence and love on your quest to become the hero of your life and on our way back to wholeness. Here we venture into the unknown and revive and mend what was torn and patch what was missing. Without further ado, I would like to introduce today's guest, which is Anouk Bindels, whose journey continues to inspire thousands of people, including me. It was like an incredible moment when I firstly heard about your story in the book of Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. You were mentioned and told a part of your story under the pseudonym Anna. And it was incredible. Basically, in this book, you told about your journey after the suicide of your second husband and how you had to overcome depression, severe disease of your immune system, cancer, and all the while raising two kids and also being a rock to them and burdening the financially stemming those burdens. But now, look at you. I'm so pleased to meet you. You're radiant. You're lovely. I love the energy that I feel when I talk to you. You're just an incredible, inspiring person. You are a psychologist, ethologist, and a relationship therapist. You are passionately embracing the word of energy healing. Thanks to all of this journey that you went through, you can integrate it now with the scientific knowledge that you also have, and then together bring it forward to those who are needing healing. And you are offering this focusing on the heart brain healing process. And I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
Thank you.
I was truly moved, as I said, by your story in the book Becoming Supernatural, but then I started to read your own book here. In German it's called Die Weisheit des Traumas, so basically the wisdom of trauma.
Yeah.
And already in the first story, like in Joe Dispenza's book, I was like, how much can an individual endure and take on? But when I read your own book, I noticed that was much more before happening. You lost your brother at 20. You lost your first husband with the age of 30 due to cancer. And even as a kid, you had to deal with anxiety early on. So it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to discover and to tell about your journey. And it seemed like the suicide that happened with your second husband was just like the tip of the iceberg regarding the challenges that you were dealing with. But I would love to hear from yourself, where do you think your journey of healing has actually began? Were there multiple quests or a call to venture and discover what is inside, what your heart is aching for? And yes, I would like to give the word to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And you know what actually happened is that with the death of my second husband and his suicide, I started realizing that all these events in my life showing up, they must have a reason. And when I started digging into it, I realized that actually why there was so much trauma in my life happening was, and mostly is, with people who experience multiple traumatic events in their life, must have something to do with my own childhood. And that part of my life I started only exploring after I lost my second husband, because coming to understand more about what is actually trauma after I lost my second husband and I was getting ill, I stumbled upon the book from Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No. And that was almost at the same time as I was starting my journey with Dr. Joe Dispenza. So being a professional, I was interested in what is trauma, and on the personal level, I was interested, how do I get out of this, right? So, but in that same time that I fell ill, and I read The Placebo, I read Becoming Supernatural, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Supernatural came much later, of course, but the first book was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And there already I realized also, hey, there are patterns stuck in me. And knowing that we are all conditioned in early childhood and even pre-verbal and prenatal, that I knew there must have been something in my childhood that I need to explore more. And that was actually my hospitalization. I was an 8-month-old baby when I attracted typhus through a family member. And I was on the verge of dying when they took me to the hospital. They told my parents, the doctor himself came that day. He took me, he put me in his own car and told my parents, please see to it that you are in the hospital fast, because I don't know if you reach here, if she will survive.
Oh, wow.
And that was the sentence my parents got when I was 8 months old. I was taken into the hospital. I was immediately isolated. And I'm 63 this year. So if you talk about 62 years ago, they didn't know about the attachment theory of Bowlby. Didn't even exist at that time. They, at that time, still thought that children have no, memory of what happens to them when they are small. Now we know much better, right? Now we know the body keeps the score always.
Yeah.
And my body kept that score of being in isolation for 3 months without my parents being able to look at me. I was behind glass. I was isolated, alone, and I was also fixated because I had lots of infusions because I was nearly dead because of dehydration. And so they put me on a lot of infusions, and I had an infusion here and 2 in my arms and 1 in my foot, so I could get enough liquid so they could see if I could still be resurrected, because when they took me to the hospital, I was almost dead.
Oh my God.
So I was isolated, left alone, and I was fixated. So I was fixated with my arms in kind of wooden coker so that I could not come and pull the things out, because an 8-month-old baby will do that. So they fixated. So if you know that in trauma, your body reacts with a reaction out of the survival instinct in either wanting to run away, wanting to fight, or you freeze, then you know that in my body, this trauma response was stuck. It was like stopped because I was in a trauma response, but I could never finish that response because I was isolated and fixed. So what happened to my nervous system? It was programmed into hopelessness and into loneliness and in a total detachment from myself and my body. And this is how I was set and programmed in my early childhood. And that program basically in my nervous system went through to my whole life. I was fearful. I was anxious also at lots of times, and I had a huge sense of not belonging and deep emptiness. And I never felt, after 5 months when I came out of the hospital, I was 14 months, and I actually never felt at home,
Mm.
and now I know that it was my attachment broken.
Mm.
I was detached. I was also not only detached, I was also dissociated from
Yeah.
my body. And you know that trauma is not the things that happen outside to you, but the things that happen inside of you
Mm.
due to that what has happened outside of you. And that's what trauma is. And that's actually the whole programming, what happened in my nervous system. And that I was dealing with already my whole life.
Wow.
And when I tell you about my youth, I was an anxious, fearful child. I was not secure in myself. Nobody was allowed actually to touch me. I
Oh,
had a very huge fear of body
contact.
attacked
Yeah.
because I was treated for 3 months with a lot of
Yeah.
infusions,
Tubes,
and
needles.
tubes, needles, and the doctors had told my mother she will not remember this. So my mother grew old with me with the idea that I would not remember, that I would forget this.
Mm.
But somehow this second death of my husband, my second husband's death, this unpredicted, this raw, this betrayal also of leaving him without telling me, just leaving me and the kids, brought me back into this total abandonment feeling,
Mm-hmm.
which I had felt as a kid.
Mm.
I always felt abandoned,
Yeah.
no sense of belonging. So actually that trauma of 2007 brought up the old deepest trauma in me.
Mm-hmm. What was the difference? Because you have experienced death before as well with your brother and with your first husband. Why was it this moment, or like what was different that it suddenly opened up this box of Pandora, like boom?
Yeah. I cannot say what opened it up. I think my children's age.
Mm.
They were 11 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring me back into my own childhood at that time,
Mm-hmm.
it was also so unsafe for me in that
Mm-hmm.
time of my life.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of issues. We had a lot of issues in my own family with my father. He was also often depressed, even psychotic at times, due to an accident where he was traumatized. My father was
Oh,
traumatized.
yeah.
And so I think my own children and my own children's age, that they mirrored that unsafety. And from the moment that my husband went out of the house, I was in a very unsafe feeling. And we know now that trauma programs the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So my nervous system and my old trauma triggers were totally activated,
Mm-hmm.
which was actually my childhood trauma triggers, right? And which
Yes.
I had learned to deal with on a certain level
Yeah. Yeah.
as a professional, and all the therapies I did in my
Yeah.
puberty, and
Yeah.
but nobody prepared me for this response. And it was as if I was in a glass bulb, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the world was outside there, but I was completely disconnected from myself.
Mm.
And I think that was the deepest trauma response that was triggered in seeing my children suffer and seeing everybody suffer, and myself feeling betrayed and left and feeling abandoned.
Mm.
That I think that was the deepest wound that was triggered again.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. You said in your book that there was this day where you were at your lowest in your life, that was after your second husband has committed suicide and you asked God basically for help, like, is life really worth living? So did something came, like was your prayers answered, or did you suddenly had some ideas how to heal? Like, I guess the urge of, okay, I really have to change something. I'm feeling horrible. I feel so
Yeah.
broken. Something has to change. I don't want to feel this way anymore. From this point, what happened?
You know, I take you back a little in time still, because I have been struggling my whole life actually with my childhood programming and conditioning of, I never knew I was a early childhood traumatized kid,
Yeah.
which I came to know only after my second husband died. But as a professional, why I became a psychologist, why I became a family psychotherapist, was all already because I knew there was something wrong with me. I was ticking differently than I could feel. I didn't feel secure in myself. When I became a puber, I had a huge eating disorder. I had very low self-esteem. So when I was 18, I already went into therapy. It was my first, when I was 18, was actually my first wake up call, knowing when I started studying psychology, I need to do something about myself, because I felt, and at this age, you feel it so big in your face when you go to university, when you go to study somewhere, and you feel you're so different, you're anxious, you're not able to connect with people, you feel isolated, and that's how was my state. Plus, I had a way of coping with it, which was an eating disorder. And nobody was allowed to know that, of course. So then when I was on university, there was one beautiful man in my life that really helped me to go and watch the other way. I see all these people that have come during my life on my path as guides. They were there on crucial points in my life. Because when I was 18, my mother was telling me, Anuk, either you go into psychiatry and you go and let yourself be taken in and be treated, or you start doing something else because you need to work on this. It's not healthy. And when you ever puke out my food again, that I cooked for you in my house, I'm not going to leave you in the house again. So that was a very clear message from my mother.
Yeah.
And in that time, my brother died also. So that was a huge, difficult time.
Wow.
But then I knew I need to go into therapy. So I went into therapy thanks to a psychiatrist who came to lecture at our university. And he had written a book, and it was about the way that people were not from wood. It's called also We Are Not From Wood. And this psychiatrist, he told me, when I asked him to sign my book, he said, Anuk, what shall I call you? The Holy Anorexia? Yeah. And I was shocked, I was like, okay. And then he gave me his card and he said, you know what? If you need therapy, you can come to me. I think I can help you. And that was so shocking at that moment. But at the same time, I felt so seen and heard that I went to him. And that was my first journey on this path of becoming a professional psychologist and working on yourself. And of course, when I choose to start to understand what happened in my family system, and I became a family and relationships psychotherapist, you have to undergo 150 sessions of self-therapy before
really?
you can become a psychotherapist.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Psychotherapy education asks for a lot of self-therapy. And so I started understanding myself more and more, but still I had no idea about my childhood trauma, But this explains what all happened after my second husband died. You see, my first husband, that was a really completed process. And I knew I have a life after
Yes.
this.
Yes.
And we really finished, you know, he died with lots of love and conscious saying goodbye and, you know, really helping each other to cope with his death. And with my brother, that was a different story. That was very traumatic for the whole family. But at that time, I was really fucked up, you know. So I never dealt with it at that time.
Yeah.
You know, I was so busy with my own that I never dealt with it. I started dealing with that process after my second husband died. So when he died, and it was this sudden, unexpected, raw, traumatic death of somebody jumping off a building and leaving
Yes.
you just alone with the kids and everybody in shock, you know, that was what actually triggered all the other not processed stuff in my life. And then I knew again, okay, I need to look again into myself, you know. I was at that time, I was actually, well, you know, well, I had kids, I had a good job, I was earning, we were having good friends, we had a nice family circle. I was actually at my stable period in my life when this happened. And that's why I didn't understand it. How can this happen? You know, because I was feeling we have a good life. But I never knew that he had this secret life inside.
Yes.
What many manic depressed persons have.
Yes.
They call it also the secret life of a manic depressed person. And there was a part in him that was so secret to everybody that we only came to know about after his death. And of course, people ask me, didn't you see it coming? No, I didn't see this coming. I knew he was struggling. I knew he was a depressed person at times. I mean, after our second daughter was born, he was depressed for 1.5 years and sitting at home at the sofa, you know, because of this huge change of 2 children and having to deal with everything, you know. And of course, I had my stepdaughter from my first marriage also still there, you know, and there was a lot going on for him.
Yes.
When we had children. But then the children were 10, 11, and we had a good time, you know. We managed with his depressions and his manic episodes, and I was at my best at that time.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like when we are this vulnerable, there's a strong part in us that is like, don't get help or doesn't want to get help because we are so fearful and we feel also very shameful. At least with my personal journey, after I've been to a retreat with meditation, I stumbled across some emotions and thoughts that I never thought that would reside within me. I was pretty shocked.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I was really at the bottom. I never been that low in my life. And there was a part of me, there was this constant fight. Like, if I feel this, I'm not sure if I can hold this or handle this. But if I keep swallowing it down, this also is not going to get it better. And I feel we are recently not in a space where family is educated enough, or society, how to hold space for another. And this is when I
You're
started
so
to,
right.
yes, and this is when I started, okay, I think I need to get help, because my thoughts were heading in a direction which I really didn't like. And I somehow knew these are not necessarily what I think, but these thoughts are here and they get louder. I think I have to do something. And then I went to therapy, and in the beginning, because it was like my mom arranged something. It was like an emergency thing, because I was crying and bawling all day long. I was like, didn't know what happened to me. I was confused. And then this woman, she said, yeah, you just have to let go. And I was like, right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Wow.
it was an interesting journey, but now um, I'm very grateful. And my intention also with this podcast is to remove shame and
Yeah,
any
very good.
guilt from the
Very good.
stories that
Very good.
people
Yes,
tell, so that
yes,
other people are knowing, okay, it's like a cycle. We cannot
yes.
necessarily choose what happens to us, and there's like with the
Yeah,
hero's journey, there's like a cycle that of steps that usually, when I listen to people, everyone went through. And if you're at the abyss, it doesn't mean it is the end. It's actually also the rebirth of something new.
absolutely.
And the more we make people familiar with this, I hope that A, they are willing to soften into it, and B, if they're really struggling, that they are not shameful to ask for help or guidance, because even in the hero's journey,
Therapy.
there's a lot of
Exactly.
supernatural help and also
Yes,
mentors,
yes.
teachers coming up.
Yeah.
So yes, talking
Yeah,
about
you know
teachers.
what? This
Yes.
is so beautiful because, see, like if you are on the path of meditation, yeah,
Mm,
sometimes you need therapy
mm,
because to me, therapy acts as a cleansing process.
mhm.
It can help you eliminate all this clutter and erased conditioned patterns that come up when you start meditating. Because what do you do with meditation? You've just told it, you enter the subconscious mind.
Mm,
And sometimes suppressed emotions, suppressed things come up. And therapy, it can aid healing by addressing and releasing these suppressed emotions.
yes.
To me, therapy is a beautiful purification journey. You know what? And the cleansed mind easily embraces hypnosis without resistance.
Mm,
And hypnosis can be employed as a stepping stone towards meditation,
yes. Yes.
you know?
Definitely.
And together, these three elements have become my trinity to enter the subconscious mind.
Mm,
Because only that mind that is cleaned, eliminated of the clutter, can become a stepping stone towards meditation.
yes. That's true. Yeah, that resonates. But
Yeah,
when did you, how did you start to step a foot into meditation? Like, you've been very familiar with all I mean, you started to become a psychologist, so you knew all
yeah.
this knowledge and this, in
I
this.
started actually when I was 18
Oh,
already
okay. Mm,
with this psychiatrist. He
mm,
was this psychiatrist I talked to you about. He was a student, a disciple of Osho.
mm-hmm.
And he actually introduced me there already at these Osho meditations, you know, the body
Yeah.
meditations and all these active meditations. So I knew about them. But, you know, the more I became a psychologist and the more I went on this clinical path,
Mm,
the more I actually forgot about that because I
mm,
was conditioned and trained in a certain way. And especially
mm.
if you start working into the clinical field, you are not allowed to do much things with meditation.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was there in the back of my mind. And in my private life, I used to love once in a while to go to a place and do these Osho meditations. So they helped me to reconnect with my body. I learned in my psychotherapy education, I did extra education as a body mind therapist. So I came to know about the somatic approach. And that is what I used together with cognitive behavior therapy. I started using somatic approach already.
Mm,
So awareness into the body, you know, aware in where things became stuck in the body. and seeing human beings as a multidimensional being, I have done all my life. But, you know, I started, when you were saying and talking about my lowest point was when I had chemo, when I was so sick, and I started feeling why somebody could take his own life. And I prayed that day for, really, God help me. I need a solution. I don't find one. I don't have a solution for myself. Please send me something that will help me to come out of here. And that's in 2011. You know, I was on a journey from 2007 till 2011 in a spiral down.
Yes.
And in 2011, that afternoon, one of my best and oldest friends and colleagues called me. And she said, Anuk, I think it's time for you that you start looking into another direction for your healing. And I said, what do you think? What do you mean? Yeah, you have been now for 4 years in this regular healthcare system. You have done everything they told you, but you have not gotten better. Don't you think it would be good for you to look into another side and open up a new perspective for yourself? And she bought tickets for the retreat from Joe Dispenza that weekend, a few weekends after that. And there was a lecture first that he used to do with the first progressives. He used to have levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. And this was level 1, and you could come for a lecture, and if you liked it, you could stay the whole weekend. Now you cannot imagine that anymore.
No.
And there were only 80 people or something in that big hall, you know.
You've been there on the
You
very
cannot imagine
start.
that also.
No.
So, and she told me, if you like the lecture, then come and stay. And if you don't, you can go home again, you know. And I was, at that time, I was really still very disabled. I was ill. I was on my lowest energy point. And I was in the midst of radiation therapy at that time. So, poof, you know, but I went there. And then there was this little man talking about such big things. And his theory, somehow, what he was saying about, you know, how to evolve your brain and how to break the habit of these thinking patterns and how you could recondition the body to a new mind, you know, all this stuff somehow attached to my psychological mind, because it was a very analytical talk.
Yes.
At least I thought it was an analytical talk, which it was not. It was very spiritual, but, you know, it really got me. This scientific explanation of the formula for change. And I opened up and I said to my friend, I'm going to stay. I cannot sit the whole day. Maybe I lose my energy. But she said, it is okay. Nobody will bother you or say that you have to sit there. But the second day I was in the front row. You know, I wanted to hear, I was so inspired. And I was even more inspired when a young lady went onto the stage. And her name is Rose, and I'm forever grateful to her. She was in her late 20s. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Oh.
And she was fully on her way of healing. And at that day, she talked about how the doctors couldn't believe that her brain tumor was gone.
Wow.
So she inspired me. And I thought, when she can heal herself of a brain tumor, which to me was even worse than my own diagnosis, and being so young, I was so inspired by her. And there was somebody else on stage also talking about something, you know, which also inspired me. So all these stories of these people who were doing this work, and I just entered into this, I got so inspired. After that, we can immediately book the second retreat, you know. And I kept on booking the second and third retreat and, going to all these retreats of Dr. Joe with my good friend and colleague.
Mm.
And we did many in those 2-3 years,
Yes.
many. I went to Barcelona, I went here, I went to Prague. I got know where he went. He came back to the Netherlands one more time. I went there,
Mm.
And then this is March or May in between there, 2011. And from that time till September 2013, I was like still with my cancer diagnosis. But after that, 1.5 year, something started changing and shifting.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I came to know about this beautiful trauma work from Gabor Mate, Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk. They all came up in that time also in my professional field.
Mm.
And then I knew, wow, I need to develop more trauma sensitive approach towards myself.
Mm.
And these big streams next to each other have really helped me come
Mm.
through my disease.
Wow. So how would a day look like after Anouk went into this workshop and getting inspired by meditation about the science about transformation? And what did you do afterwards? So to sit down.
Struggling,
Yeah.
struggling a lot, doubting a lot, doubting a lot, being fearful, being jealous of people. Why is it not happening with me? I
Mhm.
wanted, my expectations were very high,
Mhm.
and they always are, right?
Mm.
Because we see all these people getting there, and I didn't get there, you
Mm.
know. I was so at times frustrated. I was doubting. But what kept me going was still these stories of those people who have
Mm.
done it, and they were so inspiring. And somewhere I started believing it must be true.
Mm.
I'm not only through the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza at that time, I mean, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, all these pioneers in this field, I came across a very good oncologist, Kelly Turner,
Mm.
who is an oncologist who studied radical remission, in that time. I came across Anthony William, medical medium, who did a lot with nourishment.
Mhm.
And so I became actually my own therapist and the doctor I could not find. And I went everywhere,
Mm.
what might help me.
Yes.
But the main thing that really was the most difficult thing is to recondition that body to a new mind, when there's so much trauma stuck in that body and energy stuck in the body.
Mm.
It took me quite a while to get all those energies out of my body. I tell you, for the first 5-6 years, I was really working.
Mm. Yes, I can imagine. And also, it's like, it's scary because the people around us might not necessarily understand this. You see, there's possibilities, and there are other people who have done it, but then you might go back to a doctor that is maybe not fully supporting of those things, and they may laugh at you. And this is like very horrible if like a person of authority or even like closed ones, if they cannot really support you in that, because of course they also are scared and they would like you to do it in a certain way. So I wonder, how did you cultivate that trust within you and started to make decisions that were good for you? It Because I feel like it has a lot to do with trust. I see people, they decide suddenly, okay, no, I'm gonna quit chemo. But there's also some people, they say, you know what, I'm gonna stay with chemo and I just surrender and I just trust that this is gonna to help me and this is gonna heal me. So
Yeah.
I seem to, is it, maybe it's not necessarily if it's like more in the Western or more in the Eastern, it's like also cultivating this inner trust. And I wonder how this journey has been for you. Were there some things that you decided I cannot take this along with me
Yeah.
anymore? And
To
how was
me,
that growth?
yeah, to me, the second chemo was almost killing me.
Mm.
So I decided to stop chemo because there was another option that was radiation therapy,
Yeah.
which I did also. To me, it's never been either or.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been walking both paths because
Yes.
in this natural, in the normal healthcare, there is also a lot good,
Mm.
there's not
Yes.
only bad.
Yeah.
And I decided to become my own doctor and put my own boundaries around what I wanted and what not. So I really started conversing with my oncologist about what I liked and what I didn't like and what I definitely would not do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? At one retreat, there was a doctor sitting next to me. I didn't even know him.
Mm.
And Dr. Joe called me up on stage,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about my story. And then this guy, the moment I come down from stage, he says, I have another solution for you. I said, wow, what? I work at this and this clinic, and they have this and this therapy. So why don't you come and talk to me about that this might be also one of the therapies possible for you?
Mm-hmm.
And this is also what I did.
Mm.
I went into a therapy which they call dendritic cell
Mm-hmm.
therapy.
Yeah.
And this dendritic cell therapy helped my immune system
Yeah.
regenerate and to really build it up again.
Yes.
So, and I'm sure that was a huge part in my healing as well.
Yeah.
So, you never know when you make this quantum leap, but I
Mm.
would never discard one thing and put the other one there.
Yes. Yes.
It's to me, it's been both ways.
Mm.
And, and, and it was not easy to go against the doctors.
Mm.
And they gave me a lot of nocebos,
Yes.
and which was actually, if you look back at it, it's very harmful
Yeah.
because they took away my hope,
Yes.
you
It's.
know. And but at that time, by that time, I was strong enough to develop an attitude of
Mm-hmm.
I can beat this. I can do this. I know there's lots of people out there who have done a radical remission. I can do this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that somehow created this state of mind, which has supported with all the other nourishment things, with all the supplements and all the other therapies as well, to create an environment where the body could start in going into the healing frequencies.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Wonderful.
And we never know when that quantum leap is taken.
Mm.
In my time, it took me 6 years.
Yeah.
I could really say to myself in 2016, I'm cured.
Wow. So it was like a slow, what means slow, but like it was a steady, maybe even like the stock market going ups and downs. I mean, you
Yeah.
overcome something and then you see, oh, there's more. So it goes down again and then it goes even more up. Thanks to those dips, usually
Yeah.
it gets up higher again. But yes, it.
Yeah. Because, with these retreats, a lot of material came up. I tell you,
Mhm.
I never, like what you said, I never expected it was
Yeah.
so much, and now I know as a trauma specialist that the body keeps the score. So everything that you free in these meditations, which has energy been stuck in the body,
Mm.
it will show itself.
Yeah.
And if you have no tools to deal with it then, and there's no aftercare,
Yeah.
that is one thing that I really want to emphasize on people going to these retreats. See to it that you have a proper aftercare,
Yeah.
because that is something that is not happening at the Dr. Joe events. You know, you go there, but there's no aftercare.
Yeah.
So with all this, you are alone.
Yeah.
And you have to find people, you know, that really know what you're dealing with. And
Yes.
I would say that should be professionals, because if you have had trauma and that's been stuck in your body and it comes out, then you cannot just be in 5D, because that might be even a dissociation,
Yeah.
you know? You need to be back in your body, because we live here in these bodies. And yeah, the
Definitely.
mind can go there, but the body will always partly be here as well, being meta, you know?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where we all experience it, and all our difficulties as well, and the triggers as well.
Yeah. Also I found it so, the more I learn about the hero's journey, the more I have aha moments, because as well, after the abyss, basically, when all the things come up, coming back to the ordinary life, this journey of the hero is usually even as challenging, if even not more challenging, as building up those skills and being prepared for the abyss. And then the abyss comes. Basically, there's a
Yes.
death, but also a rebirth.
Yeah.
However, it's not like, okay, cool, it's done now. There's like a whole integration process and more temptations, and again, helpers appear that help
Yeah.
the hero to really purify also the essence of the teachings that he got and of his successes, so that he can bring it back forward to the people in his society or in his tribe, or
Yes.
even universal,
Yeah.
so that he can
Yeah.
help them. Then it's not about him anymore, it's about how he can help other people. So that was also a very interesting learning moment. So aha, just because now I've seen this, okay, cool, I've sort of overcome it in my meditation, but it keeps showing up again and again. And even though
Then it
you
has to be looked at.
yes,
It has to be looked
definitely,
at. Huh? It has to
exactly.
be looked at. Yeah.
How did you, when you started meditating, and also all the while having to attend to your kids, going to your own therapy sessions as well, working,
I
what?
didn't work for a few years.
Okay.
I didn't work in the period from 2010, when I really started getting very sick, till 2000, actually 13. Then I started working again.
Yeah.
I was on unemployment money. You
Yeah.
know, I was, luckily I had a good job. So I
Yes.
was insured by government ways that I could be on an unemployment money, which was not much, but I could survive with my kids. I sold my house.
Mm.
I sold my house to do all these things, you know, because it costs money.
Yeah.
And but what I realized, and what's really, really important, is because what is actually the loss is we have this essential true self
Mm.
that manifests through us. But when something traumatic happens, we lose connection with it. And that is actually the fundamental loss. And this is not something that Western psychology acknowledges.
Mm.
In Western psychology, we talk about personality and ego strength and ego weakness, and all the issues of the ego.
Mhm.
Essentially, we try to repair the ego so that it becomes a healthier ego, right?
Mm.
We restructure, we reform, but you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. You must have a healthy
Yeah.
ego,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. It's
Huh?
still necessary to exist.
Exactly, exactly. But there's no awareness that there's something with which we have lost connection. And this is much better understood in Eastern spiritual traditions, because what we have lost connection with is this dynamic force that is essentially our true self. And all this path that I've been walking, I knew that somewhere my ego had to die. And what you just said is very wise words, to that the reborn process starts. But like, you are a vulnerable child, right? So what does a vulnerable child need?
Love, a
Love
safe
and
space.
safety, to be regulated, to
Yeah.
be helped, to be understood, to be heard, to be held, you know? And if there's no awareness that you have lost some essential connection with that essential true self, then that's what people mostly misunderstood.
Mm.
And I would say that bet yourself into a good community where you know there is this holding space.
Mm.
If you start doing this, and that's why in old tradition, it was the teacher, the guru,
Yeah.
and his student, and now due to this modern time frame of technical, we can be big and we can be anywhere in the world doing this work, but there's a danger there. Because when you awaken something and you don't guide it directly in the good direction, and you know how to rebirth yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I have struggled so much.
Yes, I
Really,
can imagine.
I've struggled so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also those teachers, they have a high awareness. They know how to hold you. It's not like they pity with you, or they know this balance between
Yeah.
giving you the space, but also, hey,
Holding you.
there's
Yeah.
something else as
Yeah.
well. They
Yeah.
hold you so you don't
Yeah.
fall deeper. And this
Yeah.
is what I see. If this was just like more understood between friends and family, because sometimes it's even not necessarily what I recognized when I had my rock bottom is, of course, my friends were there, but they also had their lives going on, and I think they also didn't really know how to deal with it. Although my best friend, she did a great job, but it was also it's um it's a fine balance between. It made me question a lot of things. What is true empathy actually? What is true love
Yeah.
actually? What is empathy? Is it pitying or crying with that person, or is it just being there and holding space for them? How do I hold this balance? And that was a very interesting time to witness. And yeah, so basically with you had your, luckily you had your friends or family. Did you feel like you had to also reach out to different persons? Did you ever felt like,
Yeah.
okay, my family and friends, there's like, I don't know if they really are helping me. I know they love me. I know they want the best for
Yeah.
me, but how do you find this healing circle, or
Yeah. Yeah.
where is that today?
To me, I found that in the Dr. Joe community and in the compassionate inquiry community. So I've had two beautiful communities, but let me tell you very honestly, my family thought I was crazy.
I get that.
And my son, who was in his puberty, he even thought my mom has gone, you know. And my family really dismissed all that I did.
Mm,
They couldn't understand my journey at
mm.
all. And I lost some friends also. And what I lost mostly was my colleagues in the clinical field.
Oof, yeah.
I lost my job
Mm.
due to that, which now I'm so happy I lost it.
Yes.
Uh, but I was really losing things. For me, it was a big journey of breaking away from things that I relied on my whole life, even my
Yeah.
identity as a psychologist, which I was totally constructed around. I
Mm.
had to give up at a certain time, because I was without a job. And who was I then, But it brought me all this. That's why my title is also Wisdom of Trauma. All of this brought me to the wisdom of this true self, this essential force that's within us, which we can call the quantum field, which we can call God, whatever you want to call it, but it is there. And to connect with that has been my journey from there onwards. Even stronger it became, because I knew what it was giving me when I could connect with that space inside of me.
What gave you the strength when like your outer life was like things were stripped away from you, or like things fell apart in a good, like now you say it was good, but in those moments it's really hard. It's like terrifying at times, or like it's just like
Absolutely.
you security wise you feel super naked, vulnerable.
Yeah.
What gave you the strength, or how did you say, okay, were there times where you bounced back and tried to rebuild, and then it keeps falling apart and it keeps falling apart? So I'm curious how you found the strength to keep going.
That's a very beautiful question. What gave me the strength to go on was that at a certain point, Gabor Mate, when I was working with him on a professional level, and educating myself further in this trauma sensitive approach and being more trauma sensitive and trauma informed, he told us always the key point in healing is not instant coffee. It's slow down. Allow yourself to slow down and allow it to unfold. And there's a quote I refer to in my book. I am referring to in my book is what Kierkegaard said: you live forward and you understand backward.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is what kept me going. This was one of the main sentences that I kept in my head. Slow. Don't try to go fast. Don't try to want to be there and be enlightened. Yes, I had very enlightened epiphanies and retreats. And when I was on the airport or going back home, the triggers were there again, and the old chemicals showed up again, and the old programs showed up again. But I developed much more awareness every time. And now I know that it's really true. The moment you can observe your programs, that's the moment where you can change your destiny. Because what has been unconscious, defining your life till now, you can start redirecting with a conscious choice. But first of all, you have to become aware.
Yes, definitely.
And mostly, meditation is making you aware of what needs to be cultivated, right? Because the Sanskrit word for meditation is to cultivate yourself.
Yes, yes. And there's at the beginning, it can be a mess. Like there are so many things that come up, and you're like, wait a minute, can you come up one by one? Like, woo, can be chaotic, like very chaotic to sort of like calm yourself down. And then I would like to know from you, like you can be aware of the program, but there still might be this feeling of uncomfortableness still be there, or this fear inside your body.
Yeah.
So how did you, I would say awareness makes things a lot better, but how did you deal with the feelings that were stuck in your body? Because I think there are times where it's easier, and when sometimes new emotions come up, like you unravel some deeper layers, it can be kind of challenging to first get familiar with those, like even feeling into those emotions. That's like
Absolutely.
one challenge, and then how to let them be there without pushing them away, without trying to feel
Yeah.
just in general, just putting a label on them. I noticed
Yeah.
myself, I either want to go away or like, oh, it's perfect. And actually, it doesn't feel good, but try
Yeah.
to somehow make them feel good, but it also doesn't help. So at the end, I always notice, okay, if I just can relax uh, and just be non-judgmental about them, that helps. But at the same time, it's really difficult at times to relax into those emotions. How did you
Absolutely.
deal with it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can fully relate to that.
Mm.
And how I dealt with it in doing a lot of body work,
Mhm.
because the somatic approach will help you understand and help you release the stuck emotions
Mhm.
in the body, and then bring awareness to why and where in the body you're holding this
Mhm.
tension. You see, like trauma, if you are traumatized, then the nervous system will always speak to you with safety or unsafety. And these what we call more downsizing emotions, like
Yeah.
fear, anger, frustration, like hopelessness, all these emotions, they have a connection with earlier experiences.
Mhm.
And it's also important to see where in my childhood or where my puberty or where my adolescence I started creating these emotional patterns,
Mhm.
and where my body I keep them, and are they stuck. So a somatic approach, when things like that come up,
Yeah.
is very needed to
But
become body aware.
mm. So what is this of course somatic approach refers to the body, but what exactly did you do? Was it yoga? Was it just feeling into the body? Is there what is it actually?
I did at a certain time I did the work from Peter Levine,
Mhm.
which is like really allowing my body. What happened to me a lot during meditations is that I started shaking,
Mhm.
and that I started moving,
Mhm.
like, and I could not control those movements, but I had
Mhm.
no idea why they were there, and
Mhm.
suddenly a leg would move or something would shock in my body. And then I wanted to dive into that because I felt that there was some energy stuck in my body that was keeping me in the same position with my body,
Mhm.
And then I started doing the work from Peter Levine, and he told me that when you have a sympathetic reaction in the body and you cannot finish that because your body couldn't
Mhm.
fight or flee,
Mhm.
somewhere the body will start releasing that energy, and that looks like shaking.
Mhm.
It looks like trembling. It looks
Mhm.
like whirling, you know, and you need to go with that. But
Mhm.
when I was sitting in meditation, it would happen, but I had no awareness of it. And when
Mhm.
I started working with the somatic approach, I became aware of what was my sympathetic reaction in
Mhm.
the nervous system. So I was able to start regulating my nervous system.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
now when I meditate and I feel something, I allow it to happen, but it's not that scary anymore.
Ah, okay. So if it's twitches, if it's pain, if it's whatever what comes up, it's like allowing, relaxing into it, allowing to give it space
Yeah,
and also your
yeah,
attention, and then
yeah. And it's bringing awareness to what's happening in that body, because it's always a release of energy
mm,
happening.
yes, yes.
But if you're traumatized, sometimes when you have had a coping of disconnection,
Mm,
going into meditation can even bring you further away
yeah,
from the connection of your body.
yeah, yeah.
And that happened to me a few times, that
Mm-hmm,
I came out of a retreat and I was fully disconnected. You
mm-hmm,
know, I had no connection with my body whatsoever. And I felt like alienated. I
yeah.
felt like, I felt like, people were not understanding me. I had no connection to the real world at
Mm,
times.
mm-hmm,
And later I came to understand that that was dissociation as well.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I also had some experience where I was like, maybe I need something else right now than meditation. There was a time where I felt like I'm not sure if this is helping me right now. I think it's more of
Yeah.
a escapism.
Yeah.
Although it reflecting back, I feel like your body really tells you what you need.
That's so
And
beautiful you say that. Yeah.
yes, it took some trial and errors, but it's I don't regret anything. It was a very good learning lessons, I could
Yeah, but
say.
it's good. It's good that you share that,
Yeah.
because people who go on this path
Yeah.
sometimes have no idea.
Yeah.
And it can be dangerous as well. I had a few people over the past few years who came back from some retreats that were really psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to really work with them to bring them back into the connection with the body, because trauma, as I told you, will sometimes make you break the connection with your body.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are coming into a re-traumatizing because of the things that come up and there's nobody to guide you properly, then you can really get lost. And I
Yeah.
have noticed that a few times already
Yeah.
in this field of personal development,
Yeah. 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 Definitely. I'm curious, like, when did you feel, okay, maybe this is right now not what or like, what can you do if you, because I feel like especially it's trending on TikTok. Every YouTuber or new influencer is suddenly a manifestation coach or whatnot, or a meditation coach. And it makes me wonder sometimes, yes, I believe in it, but there's also something else here. So how did you balance? How did you keep your ego in check? How did you
yeah,
um not also, I mean, I can imagine, and I've been guilty of this myself, that when challenging arises, like, okay, no, I need to, I would love to meditate first, because now when you're aware of the feelings in your body, or when fear arises, it can be overwhelming at times, but I wonder then, am I really free if I cannot handle the situation without doing XYZ first? Then meditation has just become another coping mechanism. So how can we get
excellent.
how
Yeah,
can we
this
get
is so beautiful that you say that
uh,
meditation should not be a coping mechanism, because
yes.
that can happen.
Yeah. So
And
get your how did you keep your ego in check with that?
yeah,
Like, when is the time to do this, and like, when is it helpful? Because I do believe it has a lot of beneficial um, things, but at the same time, it might not be the whole story. So balancing the two is
yeah,
the reality and the spiritual realm for healing. How did you do that?
yeah. My patients keep me very humble,
Mm-hmm.
because when I sit here in my praxis and I have 5, 6 people talking to me about their struggles, about their day-to-day struggle in life, I always feel this compassion for human suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And we all suffer
Mm-hmm.
growing up. There's only a few of us that were lucky enough to grow up without, anything. Huh? The world is a learning place. So to me, life itself has become my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I deal with that? when something nasty shows up, I don't run away from it. I deal with it. And I see what perception I develop as a result of what's happening to me. You know, like I said in the beginning, trauma is not something that is done to us. It's what happens inside of us as a follow-up of what is done to us. And if you stay curious on the inside world, on what is my perception I develop here when something like that happens or something shows up in life, I have two possibilities. Either I run away screaming like a pig that goes to the slaughterhouse, right? Or I become curious and start looking into it. And curiosity of curious what this might bring you, curious about where it will lead you, that keeps you in a better perspective. And that's how I started doing it. I started to stop running away because I saw that that was what I had been doing all my life, you know, to run away and cope with hard working. I was a workaholic. I was eating. I was coping with eating. I was coping with buying beautiful things, you know.
Yeah, it's easy to these days to cope, especially when we have now our smartphones and Instagram.
Exactly.
I noticed myself sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, no, 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 no. You're just picking it up because now this feeling arises. And you want to get rid of it. You don't want
Yeah.
to feel it. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're so right. Yeah.
yes, it's easy
Yeah.
to escape those emotions, but then we end up with so many stored emotions, so we cannot sit still at all. And then it takes more effort to actually sit down, calm down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
slowly dismantle everything.
Yeah. But you know, things like sports, yoga, dancing, music, walking in nature, you know, those things are very helpful. Having a sit around a campfire, you know, talking with people, sharing circles, they are very helpful. I love sharing circles, you know, like to organize, I organize sharing circles and where people can share. And, you know, I really love that. And that's what keeps me going and humble.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't want to write history. I don't want to make history. I'm not chasing after anything, just feeling compassion for my human guests here on this planet, you know.
Yes, yes. I
We're
feel
all
that.
guests here, all busy with some process in the evolution of the brain, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
And
rather do it with a lot of curiosity
yeah, definitely.
and
And
humbleness.
yeah, I feel like the more you relax into life as well, the less you chase, the more fulfilling and easier things start to unfold. Every time I try to worry, oh, what is the next step? I just go in circles, and the moment I'm like, screw that, I'm over that, I'm just let it go. Boom, suddenly an opportunity shows up, or suddenly I become aware of something that I could do. But if I'm just endlessly circling around, then it just doesn't work.
Yeah, how nice. How nice that you have already this. I wish I would have had that at your age, you know. I had to really become 52 and 53 years old to find that. And this is beautiful.
It's never
I
too
really
late.
appreciate.
Thank you. My dad was like, because um recently I've been moving to Switzerland, and I'm also in the unknown right now. since I have stopped the job that I was previously doing and really re-evaluating everything and what I would like to do. And before I just would went crazy. And my dad the other day, he called me because I was telling him, oh yeah, I'm just gonna call a friend today. Um, and this one job didn't work out. And he was spiraling in his mind, oh no, she thinks she's worrying and everything. And now she's calling her friend. And then I was on a call with him and I was like, no, Dad, I just called her because she was not really doing well. I just wanted to check on her. But you know what? I'm kind of doing fine. I'm not sure if this is like smart in the situation, but I'm too tired to feel worried. So I'm just, yeah,
Wow.
just
Yeah,
gonna deal with it somehow. I am developing this trust more and more that I don't need to know the next step
exactly.
immediately, and that yes, but it's still sometimes triggering, but I can see now, okay, it helps. And what really helps is like consciously relaxing into my heart. And I know you are an expert on this too, so I would love for you to tell us a bit more about the
Yeah.
importance of the heart and how it can help
Yeah,
us overcoming those challenges.
absolutely. The heart is the most important organ in our body, I
Mm.
always say, when it comes to feeling, right?
Mhm.
And the heart knows way ahead. It receives information. It has a beautiful field around us. I always call the heart the seat of the soul,
Mhm.
where all your eternal soul light body is seated. And from there, if we can start trusting the language of the heart, we start trusting the language of authentic feelings
Mhm.
and our gut instinct. And that communicates with our brain in a way that we start thinking in a different way.
Yeah.
Because if we can live from these emotions that are more elevated than the ones that are downsizing us,
Mhm.
then we can, it's the bridge.
Yeah.
It's the bridge. It's a bridge to a whole new landscape
Yeah.
of possibilities. And I love to live from the heart and really trust this place in my body, knowing that when it speaks to me, it
Mm.
really speaks to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Beautiful put. How was it at the beginning entering your heart? Because also very often in any sort of energetic healing, we try to connect with the heart and call up elevated emotions, since it's all, I'm blown away by this science of Heart Math Institute. They really
Yes, me too.
made a great
Yeah.
job of dismantling of hormonal, biological, and chemical
Yes.
processes take place
Yeah.
when you focus on your heart. But also when you first start trying to sense your heart and you're like, yeah, let's go and feel love. And then you tune in and nothing happening.
Yeah, but you know what? If most of people living in the Western world, they live with a closed heart
Mm.
center. Because we have learned so much to be in our analytical
Oh,
minds, we
yeah.
have hardly any connection with our body. And the heart is called like the wooey spiritual
Mm.
people, but actually the main wisdom is in the heart.
Mhm.
And if you can start living from there and really trusting that language, it's a beautiful language.
Yeah.
And it's the language of truth, it's the language of wisdom, it's the language of intelligence, because an emotional, intelligent person will never, ever harm another person, will
Mhm.
not be able to harm another person.
Yeah.
And that's what actually in the Buddha they called the world of love and wisdom.
Mhm.
When you would live from that heart state,
Yes.
then you would be able to enter into an enlightened state, right?
Yeah. I think a lot often we confuse living from the heart with some naive, being naive, or
Yes,
being like
exactly.
a weird romantic, because we really don't
Uh,
have a lot of literature or like movie material that is like
Yeah,
showing these things to us. I mean, we have a lot of broken stories in TV, not a holistic. I'm sorry. We
exactly.
we either have tragedy, and then we are, which
Drama, drama,
drama exactly,
crime.
crime, and these
Yeah,
are all just like a part, and that's what I'm so passionately right now learning about the hero story, because tragedy is just one side, but it always comes with a comedy, and together they form this whole circle. And when we only focus on those broken stories of tragedy, drama, and crime, we are being left with this idea, oh yeah, it doesn't work anyways. Like, hope is nice for the people who are close to die anyways. They need to be prepared. Actually, Joseph Campbell said this in his book.
yeah,
We are just, because tragedy is happening, and it gets very personal in this world. And even if it trauma happens to you, it can actually, the tragedy or like this trauma, it has a name, it has an emotion. There are like real things happening out there, but we are not ever shown the transcendence of
yeah.
tragedy
That's it. Yeah,
into comedy. And in
yeah,
this hero journey, there are so many different steps, which then beautifully unmental, or how the hero prospers and even can get strength from the tragedy. But what we've seen now, or what we see so much, is like, if you hope or if you open up your heart, you are going to be a foolish person who just will fall even harder. And this is like what I discovered within myself, that I was so scared. I managed to open up my heart. Now I'm hitting another layer, but there's a layer in me that is very scared to open my heart, because it says, if you open your heart, you're going to be vulnerable and you're going to be in danger. There's nothing that is, it's like dangerous. You're going to be, yeah, something like this. And I notice it's because I've never been really shown
mm,
in society. I mean, even like, I don't know how to put this. There's very little literature, and even the literature that exists, I think you have to even dive deeper to understand, aha, this is not the end of the story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's an Eastern philosophy and psychology. They talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's more the energetic
Yes, exactly.
level, right? So the heart is our energetic level
Mm-hmm.
starting. Like that's the place where we can connect with all the energies and that are out there.
Yes.
But we are not educated like
No,
that.
not at all.
And I think in ancient traditions, you see it still a lot in shamanism, for
Yeah.
example, where they do not separate the body from the mind and not from the direct environment you're in. So it's the connection with Mother Earth, with the body, with the mind, and with the energies.
Mm.
And we are a multidimensional being. We have no one dimension. We are a
Yes.
multidimensional being. We are not just a how do you say it? We are not a coincidence
Yes.
in just flesh and bones. We are on the deepest level, our quantum level, we are energy.
Yeah.
And if we could bring more awareness to that healing space of energy, energy is actually the new medicine.
Mm.
It's cheap and it works.
Yes.
But you
It is.
know how to tap into it.
Mm.
We never learned about energy healing. And of
Yeah.
course, there's some ancient traditions like the Chinese and the Indian Ayurveda, and there have been some cultures on this planet that understood energy and energy healing. But it's still very little in regular medicine that we talk about energy.
Yeah.
And if you talk about the wisdom of the heart, that's energy.
Yeah.
It's a specific energy, and it has a frequency, which is, I mean, healing.
Yes.
And if you go higher on those frequencies, which we call the Solveig frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
the higher you come in these frequencies, the more healing power there is.
Yeah.
And this is not something that I learned in my psychology education. I
Mm.
had to go to India for that, you know, to study
Mm.
some Indian philosophy and Indian wisdom,
Mm.
or shamanism, you know, to
Mm.
understand what is this energy work about.
Yeah. Definitely. And then you come back and you finally discover it now a little bit in science, which I think is so beautiful
Exactly. It's beautiful. Yeah.
because it allows
Yeah.
our Western minds to embrace what before, because I still have trouble sometimes when I hear about, um, I don't know, when I hear the ancient stories, I'm like, I have no idea what they tell me here. But when I take those and I find something that is parallel with the science about the science of the heart, I'm like, oh, energy is information. So if I feel good, my heart will beat differently in a way that is beneficial. And my heart waves or variability is going to change. And this will actually lead to another reaction that make me produce oxytocin, which then helps me again to heal whatever wound I have, be it emotional or be it my nervous system. So it's like finally those puzzle pieces, they get together. I'm like, oh, this is why, because I feel like this word energy is still in many minds like, oh yeah, energy. But no,
Yeah.
it's now you can give
Yeah.
it greater meaning. It's like
Yeah.
information. So
It's
I
information. It's information, you know, and I would even like to add recently, after a few years ago, I think 4 years ago, I started working with Gabor Mate on psychedelics and trauma, you
mm-hmm.
know, and this plant medicine, they have an energy and they carry information in which we even can tap easily in
Yeah,
that, you know, and we do work with that with trauma, and then you start understanding how energy works.
yeah.
You know, if you study nature, then you know how energy works, because
Mm,
in nature, it's all energy, you know, and our bodies are all energy.
mm,
But nobody tells you that, you know. And
mm,
luckily, what you say, there are a few pioneers now who are
mm-hmm.
showing this, and Dr. Joe is doing all this research work, and some other great people in this field are doing all this
Mm,
research work. So we get to know that it's
yes,
working and that it's true.
yes. How was that like when you first connected to your heart? I feel a lot of people still get frustrated if it doesn't work immediately and other things come up. So, on how much of love were you able to feel at the very beginning and how,
Not so much.
yeah.
Not so much. I became in the beginning so aware how closed off I was.
Yes. Mm,
And that was so shocking, actually.
yes. It's ugly when we see
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I was so closed off. I was, yeah, but that's the same disconnection, you know. So if you are disconnected due to whatever happens to you from this beautiful core self, this true self, that is disconnection from the heart as well.
Mm,
You know, and I call it the frozen heart center. I was
mm,
in a frozen state in my heart. It took me years to open up and trust again, you know, and to really allow people to come close and to open up to love, you know. And now nobody's taking that away anymore, you know. Nobody can take away my love, you know,
That's
because it's
great.
my love. Yeah, yeah,
Beautiful. I think that's a really beautiful thing to know, that things might not unfold immediately. Like you close your eyes, you focus on your heart, and like boom,
yeah,
open. It might take a
yeah,
little while, and
yeah,
if you fuel it with your attention and intention, then it's uh it's gonna be
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, you
Did
know, and it's what I say to you is that in those retreats you have this supportive environment, and that goes easily, you know. You're all
mm-hmm,
in that same energy and that same vibe. But when you come home, it's a
mm-hmm,
total different story.
yeah,
And there's not this huge group. I don't know. I mean, by now these retreats have thousands of people, right? So if you go with thousands into that same flock of emergence, but then you come home and you're still that single bird without the flock, you know, how to keep that energy up and how
mm,
to deal with it. It's not always easy.
mm,
And that is something that, well, you only can experience through experience, right?
mm-hmm, definitely.
That, and then how to deal with that.
Yeah. It's where the work begins. Taking it with into your everyday life,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
What
yeah.
I'm curious, what was like, was there, what would you say were your biggest programs or conditions, like regardless of if it was connected to your husband or if it was something very generic, like a sense of worthiness? What came up
I,
in
yeah, what came up was actually this deep loss, lonely
Mhm.
feeling, you know, of not being able to connect, and fear, distrust, and low worth, low self-esteem,
Mm,
which were my main programs already from childhood, actually,
yeah,
and which were mirrored back to me so big in that time.
yeah.
That were the main programs. Finding my self-worth, finding my strength also,
Mm-hmm.
not feeling hopeless, but feeling, you know, like the other strength.
Mm-hmm. Tuning into your heart help with that, I
Exactly.
guess. Yeah,
Absolutely.
beautiful.
That opened up a whole state of power.
Mm, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really, really
The
beautiful.
anchoring into the heart
Mm.
and then going from there
I
is
guess
beautiful.
it's really, I mean, I could ask 1,000 more questions, but I guess it's what I noticed, it's simple, not necessarily easy. But I
Mhm.
mean, at the same time, we all try to do the same thing, right? We try to override or like program something new, unlearn the old program, and most importantly, coming into a state where you're connected with your body and with your heart so that you can actually also feel differently. And then,
Mm.
was it easy for you to make different decisions? You were in a you wrote that you were in a like more or less abusive or not very healthy relationship. I guess it was very shortly after the time
Shortly, yeah,
shortly, right?
yeah.
But also, let's not only take this, but like further down along your healing process, what helped you to make better decision and keep not only maintaining mode, but also um, growing
When
further,
when the
shedding the
evidence,
layers.
yeah, when the evidence started showing up in my life, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's where I changed. When I started seeing, hey, when I make this choice from the heart with really people that support me in this, a whole new landscape opened up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I could make choices which I never was thought I would be capable of making that choice, but I simply did it because I knew wow, this is very important. This right now is very important to me. And if I don't make the choice now, when am I going to make it?
Yeah.
And I really dare to jump out of my comfort zone and to be open and curious for what it would show up.
Mm.
And
Also,
in the meantime, I never forgot to start my day with an intention of how I would like to show up that day.
mhm.
And of course, sometimes I could not even keep it up for 1 hour. But, I was turning into that. How would I like to show up today? What
Mm.
is it that is the best expression of myself today?
Yeah.
Those questions. Of living from this mind and in fear and distrust, which is a very old program, I know, or the one that is open and curious and loving, you know?
Yeah, curiosity, I think, is a very beautiful word because it allows you to peek into things without um, irresponsibly jump right in without
Yeah,
any
exactly.
any sense of I don't know, like without preparation. Um, yes, so it helped you as well with the decision making, I
Yeah,
guess, also
absolutely.
tuning into your heart.
Absolutely.
Did you, I wonder, when you tune into your heart, I definitely convinced that you always get to make the right decision, but at the beginning, when other feelings still might also be in this confusion, when you start opening up your heart and you might feel love, but then there might be also fear and maybe also wish thinking or desires that are maybe feeling good, but not necessarily are good right now. I don't know how to express that, but like, how did you know that was now a decision that I made from my heart? Like, it's good for me when you may be at the stage where things are still confusing, like you're letting go of the old paradigm, you created a new one, and you're in the river of change, and you're trying to make new decisions, but at the back of the head is maybe, I'm not sure if this is really a good idea to do this. So how to dismantle what is fear, what is like worth doing, and what is like what is my intuition said. I might not know the next step, but I might, but I
Mm.
think it's good for me because we cannot always
Yeah,
know and project everything into our future, right?
that's trial and error.
Trial and error, okay. You don't get around it.
No, sometimes I would think and feel, and then it would be totally not right for me. But again, you live forward and you understand backward.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, yeah, going up that path and then going backward again and then saying, okay, no, I better take that direction,
Mm-hmm.
and by now I know for sure what is my direction. I'm connected
Mm-hmm.
with my deepest authentic feelings, and I listen to what my heart needs.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to what my body needs, and that is what I dare to live up to now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Wonderful.
also the fear that has to die,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's mostly the fear for the fear of something,
Mm.
and eventually even the bad choices I made turned out to be the best choices afterwards,
Yeah.
So I had learned again from that. Oh, wow, big time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And not being afraid of making choices which might not be directly the good ones,
Oh, I
and
think that's,
and and not judging yourself for that.
yeah, yeah.
Look at yourself with these eyes of compassion and mercy,
Mm.
you know. I mean, no human being has become a better person if by judging yourself.
Definitely.
And I see persons growing and evolving when they add mercy and compassion towards things from themselves, mistakes
Mm-hmm.
they have made, wrong choices, I have made. When I could start looking at them with compassion and mercy for myself, where I was in that time of my life not being conscious.
Mm,
Now I would really, if I would go against it, now I would know immediately.
yeah.
But at that time, who was I? I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
myself. So when you start on this path of self-discovery, compassion is the word that you need.
Mm,
And that keeps you in the heart, keeps you merciful for the things you've gone through, you had to deal with, the hardship you had to endure, the family you grew up with,
mm,
things that happened to you in your life. If you can
yeah.
really, that's the language of the heart. If you can be compassionate and
Yeah.
feel mercy for yourself.
Yeah. That's beautiful reminder. This is very important because so many people they beat themselves up
Um,
and
I
try
tell you,
to and try
yeah,
to shame and guilt oneself into change,
yeah,
but it really doesn't work. It
no,
doesn't, it's not worth it and it
no,
doesn't work.
no, because those emotions are downlifting.
Mm,
They
yeah.
don't bring you anywhere.
Yeah.
The language of the heart is the language of compassion.
Mm,
If you can see both sides, what you did wrong, and still feel compassion for yourself, because you didn't do this on purpose.
yeah.
You 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 just did because you were not aware.
Yeah. Like little kids actually.
Yeah, exactly.
You might
Exactly.
have be a more analytical thinking, but you're still in a way a kid that just like tries out and try and error,
Yeah,
right? If you don't
yeah,
know, you don't know.
exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly. And especially on this path of self-development and self-healing. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of uh, judgmental
Oh
talk.
yes. I personally had my experience, which I'm grateful for, with personal development when I started like into network marketing, and it was just like, yeah, I want to earn money quickly.
Yeah,
And of course, there
yeah,
are people who make it, and this model was absolutely valid and was nothing illegal or some sort of those things. But what I noticed, those people in personal development, sometimes they miss embracing and self-acceptance, and it
yeah,
becomes a you are in the way, you are out of my way. Like I move forward and then they move forward and forward and forward, and they end up being so lonely and also really depressed inside, even though they're very successful. They
yeah,
often,
yeah,
yeah, they're missing something in here. And now
absolutely.
I'm much more prone to speakers which are not this like guilt. They are also taking this into account, this
Yeah,
notice of compassion and of
absolutely.
forgiving and embracing, because
Yeah.
if it puts your nervous system into fight or
Stress,
flight mode,
absolutely. Excellent,
and then you
absolutely.
don't succeed.
Exactly.
If you try to guilt another person, then there would
Absolutely.
probably never be an opportunity for forgiveness or common understanding, because how, of course, this person's going to defend themselves if your
Exactly.
identity is being threatened. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Nice.
so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank
this
you.
ending note with the heart. And is there anything like something that you really would like to share with young people, with any, like with all the people out there who are listening to this podcast? Is there something on your heart that you would like to share?
Yeah. Find the way of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
That's really find the way of compassion, find the way of self-love, self-acceptance. Don't be harsh on yourself, and like know that life itself will show you exactly what you need to know about yourself, and you cannot force things.
Mm-hmm.
Nature has its own tempo.
Mm-hmm.
Like I put a seed in the floor, in the ground, and it takes its own time to blossom. Some seeds come out very quickly and become
Mm-hmm.
out very quickly a vegetable or plant, and some take years to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And these are multi-layered processes. It's not one process. It's processes on many dimensions, on
Mm-hmm.
the physical dimension, on the tissue dimension, on the organ dimension, on the energetic dimension, on the emotional dimension, on the mental dimension, on the, spiritual dimension. We are so multi-layered, and know that you cannot just, force things. Maybe on the energetic level, you need to let a seed grow, which needs to become an oak, and that takes hundreds of years, right? And maybe on the mental level, you get an insight and you change, and it's a nice mustard seed,
Mm-hmm.
But take your time to allow on all these different levels to unfold things as they unfold, and stay compassionate with you,
Yeah,
patient.
beautiful. Thank you so much for those words. These
Thank
are
you.
beautiful, very beautiful words. I'm so happy that you've taken your time for today. It was such a beautiful episode and podcast, and I would love to um, share with people. I really enjoyed your book too. I don't know, is it? Oh no, the lightning is a little bit off right now, but I'm gonna
It's
share
in
it in the
Dutch.
switching and
It's
in
in
German.
Dutch, German, and it's coming out in English the end of this year.
Oh, really? I was wondering
Yeah,
about that because I
yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
recommend it to a friend of mine, and she lives in Canada. I
yeah,
was like, you have to read
yeah.
it.
It's coming out in English as well. So I will keep you posted.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Also the
And I,
meditations too.
yeah, they are already in English. All the
Ah,
meditations, they are in English, German, and Dutch. I made
okay.
meditations in 3 languages, and all the retreats that we give are
Mm-hmm.
in either German, in Dutch, in English, so yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Because I have the sort of blessings of the energy centers, your version, and I absolutely adore it. It's like one of my favorites. The
Oh,
music
thank you.
is it's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah,
It's really amazing.
it's
Um,
the
yeah,
healing of the energy
healing.
centers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Thank you.
So yes, if you're curious more about Anuk, you can find her. I believe your website is
Yeah.
anoukbindels.com.
Yeah.
And
.com. Yeah.
yes, and you will find the book, information about the book, about the therapy, training, and coaching sessions that she is offering, and the events. And I am more than I know that
Yeah.
you
And
are
the
finding
online
some
course, I have an online course as
oh,
well.
beautiful.
Yeah. In
Yes,
German and in English. So,
beautiful. So
and in
check
Dutch. I mean,
and in
yeah.
Dutch, yes. So please check it out. There's very valuable wisdom and knowledge there, and you are going to be in very good hands with her. Thank you so much for listening today to venture with us into the unknown on with Anuk's journey and collecting all those jewels that we brought up from the night into the day that are shining bright. And thank you very much.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.